Our faith in the criminal justice system depends on the knowledge that everyone is playing by the rules. While many police departments and officers make concerted efforts to operate within the rules, police corruption persists. With the broad financial reporting and on-the-ground responsibilities of law enforcement, opportunities for abuse abound. The temptation of ignoring a pile of dirty money or a simple bribe can be too much to resist for many people, including many times our law enforcement. Our history is littered with politicians, lawyers, and community leaders that have had their hand in some sort of illegal activity, but that doesn't mean that there's not honest officers out there wearing the badge and protecting us. There's just a few bad apples in the system. Here are some of the bad people that took advantage of what they're not supposed to do. Stephen Caracappa and Luis Eppolito. Both were former New York City police detectives who worked on behalf of the New York City Mafia, principally the Lucchese and Gambino crime families, while they committed various illegal activities. The two became known as the Mafia Cops. In 2006, they were convicted of a multiple amount of charges stemming from the 1980s and the early 1990s in New York City and Las Vegas. Both were convicted in 2006 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2009. Interestingly, once after a meeting with actor Joe Pesci in Cafe Central, a restaurant frequented by celebrities, Eppolito got a minor career as an actor with small roles in movies including Lost Highway, Predator 2, and Goodfellas. According to Lucchese crime family underboss Anthony Gaspipe Casso, he and his boss paid Eppolito and Caracappa $375,000 in bribes, and also payments for murder contracts beginning in 1985. Casso stated in 1986 that as a retaliation for an attempt on Casso's life, the two police detectives kidnapped and handed over James Heidel, an associate of the Gambino crime family, to be murdered by Casso. Again, on Casso's orders, Caracappa and Eppolito murdered Lucchese family member Bruno Fasciolo because Casso suspected him of being an informant. Fasciolo's murder is famous for the stuffed canary federal agents found in his mouth at the crime scene, considered to be a message to other informants. At least partially in retaliation for the 1985 murder of Gambino crime family boss Paul Castellano, arranged by John Gotti, Casso ordered Caracappa and Eppolito to kill Gambino captain Edward Eddie Leno. On November 6, 1990, the detectives pulled Leno over in his 1990 Mercedes-Benz and shot him 9 times. On March 6, 2009, Eppolito was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 100 years and Caracappa to life plus 80 years. Each was fined more than $4 million. Caracappa was incarcerated at Coleman, a United States penitentiary in Florida. He was later transferred to a federal prison in North Carolina before dying of cancer on April 8, 2017. Eppolito was incarcerated in a United States penitentiary, high-security federal prison in Tucson. He died on November 3, 2019, in federal custody at a hospital. His cause of death has not been disclosed. Joseph Miedzianowski. Miedzianowski was a Chicago police officer labeled as the most corrupt cop ever on the force. Miedzianowski served as both police officer and drug kingpin, using his knowledge of the streets and gangs to shake down drug dealers. For most of his 22-year career, Miedzianowski would run the Chicago Gangs unit while running his own drug gang at the same time. During his 22-year police career, he received 59 citations for valor and arrest and was publicly praised for his high number of drug and illegal weapons busts. During this time, he was also secretly revealing the identity of undercover police officers to gang members, protecting drug organizations, distributing crack cocaine, and supplying gang members with ammunition. Miedzianowski would be convicted of 10 counts including drug conspiracy and racketeering in 2001. He was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. David Mack and Rafael Perez. David Mack and Rafael Perez worked together for the LAPD Rampart Division, but also worked for Death Row Records and were members of the Bloods gang. Mack would receive the LAPD Medal of Honor for killing a drug dealer who allegedly pulled a gun on him, but he would also later be convicted of robbing a bank of $722,000 from a branch of the Bank of America and be implicated, along with Perez, in the murder of rapper the notorious B.I.G. Mack was sentenced to 14 years and 3 months in federal prison. He has never revealed the whereabouts of the money, bragging to fellow inmates that he will be a millionaire by the time he is released. His partner Perez was involved in numerous crimes and corruption, in addition to the theft and resale of at least $800,000 of cocaine from LAPD evidence lockers. Perez was also accused of being a member of the Bloods and murdering rapper the notorious B.I.G. at the behest of producer Suge Knight of Death Row Records. When Perez was finally arrested, he implicated 70 other Rampart Division officers in various forms of misconduct, ranging from bad shootings to consuming alcohol while on duty. Over 100 previous convictions were overturned based on Perez's testimony. For this deal, Perez received a 5-year prison sentence as well as immunity from further prosecution of misconduct short of murder. John Burge. John Burge is a former Chicago Police Department detective who oversaw the torture of hundreds of black men, resulting in false confessions between 1972 and 1991. According to The Guardian, between 1972 and 1991, Burge either directly participated in or implicitly approved the torture of at least 118 people in police custody. In 20 years of service, he earned 13 commendations and a letter of praise from the Department of Justice. Federal prosecutors stated that Burge's use of torture began in 1972. Burge was the leader of a group of police officers known variously as the Midnight Crew, Burge's Ass Kickers, or the A-Team, who abused suspects to coerce confessions. Federal prosecutors stated that the Midnight Crew used methods of torture including beating, suffocating, burning, and electrical shock to the genitals, among other methods. Although Burge was protected by the statute of limitations for his crimes, he was convicted of lying about the torture. On January 21, 2011, Burge was sentenced to 4.5 years in federal prison. Burge served his sentence at the Federal Correctional Institution Butner Low near Butner, North Carolina. Burge died at age 70 on September 19, 2018, at his home in Apollo Beach, Florida. Robert Gasivius, Kenneth Bowen, and Anthony Villavaso. The three were members of the New Orleans Police Department during Hurricane Katrina. They were charged with first-degree murder for killing 17-year-old James Brissett, who was innocent and unarmed, and a mentally ill man on the Danziger Bridge in the days after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. The men were simply looking for shelter in the hurricane, and the cops pounced on him. Bowen, Gasivius, and Villavaso were found guilty of falsifying reports and false prosecution in the conspiracy to cover up the shooting and possibly face the death penalty. All officers served time in prison. The 77th Precinct Buddy Boys and Henry Winter. In the 1980s, Brooklyn's 77th Precinct in Bedford-Stuyvesant was like the Wild West. Cops on the beat were known to steal money from the dead, pocket confiscated cash from drug busts, and pilfer crime scenes for anything left behind by burglars. And when takes off crime scenes weren't enough, the unit created crime scenes of their own. The radio signal Buddy Bob was used to gather all parties interested in going on a raid, which included anything from breaking into a smoke shop after hours to busting down the doors of drug dealers' dens solely to steal any cash on hand. The entire precinct was corrupt. The corruption involved officers robbing drug dealers in broad daylight and setting up fake robberies, then selling the drugs and goods themselves. The precinct took pride in being an elite gang of criminal cops who called themselves the Buddy Boys. Henry Winter joined the New York City Police Department as a devoted police officer and family man who had never broken the law. From being an honest cop, he became a tough cop who often took the law into his own hands. He eventually was banished to the Alamo, the 77th Precinct, the Brooklyn dumping ground for department disciplinary problem makers. In May 1986, Internal Affairs caught Officer Henry Winter in a pickup truck with cocaine and strong-armed him into informing on his fellow cops. The resulting tapes and testimony were used to indict 13 officers and have another 90 relocated in an attempt to purge the precinct's toxic culture. Michael Dowd. Michael Dowd was often referred to as a criminal who happened to wear a cop uniform. His talents for lawlessness are legend on the force. During an 8-year on-the-job crime spree, Dowd built an empire by protecting drug lords to the tune of $8,000 a week. At the same time, he was stealing coke from drug dens in East New York and Brooklyn, then selling it on Long Island. The profits were huge, and Dowd made no efforts to conceal them, driving a Corvette, wearing expensive clothes, and buying 4 posh homes. In the course of his career, Dowd committed a host of crimes, including conspiring with drug traffickers to distribute cocaine, warning drug dealers about upcoming raids, and providing them with guns and badges. We don't need no stinking badges. It was the Suffolk County Police who eventually collared Dowd in an undercover drug sting. Dowd's partner in crime, Kenny Urell, who was arrested as part of the sting, flipped on Dowd and agreed to wear a wire once the two were released on bail. Urell's wiretap caught David plotting to skip bail. The elaborate plan was to raise funds for an escape to Nicaragua. The tape kept Dowd in jail while the feds built their case. Dowd was convicted of racketeering and conspiracy to distribute narcotics and served 12 years in prison. The Dirty 30. In the 1990s, Harlem's 30th Precinct, aka the 3-0, was the cocaine capital of the city. In 1994 alone, officers legally confiscated $900,000 in drug money, double the average recovered in every other Manhattan precinct. Dealers came from neighboring boroughs and states to buy blow in bulk out of heavily guarded pre-war buildings, using spycraft-type methods to circumvent the law. They also shopped right out of the 30th Precinct Police Headquarters. Skimming from crime scenes or evidence rooms, an organized drug distribution operation under the supervision of Sergeant Kevin P. Nannery earned the nickname Nannery's Raiders. Fake radio calls were made to provide cover for illegal raids on drug dens, the spoils of which were either pocketed or resold on the street. The market was so saturated with stolen product that a gram of coke sold for $20 to $25. In the rest of the city, it averaged $50 to $90. It took a 2-year investigation by undercover cop Barry Brown to bring down the corrupt crew. He testified under the alias Officer Otto during the Mullen Commission hearings on police corruption, with his face hidden and his voice disguised, afraid of retaliation from the cops he was ratting on. All told, 33 officers were arrested on charges ranging from extortion and civil rights conspiracy to grand larceny and narcotics distribution. John Joseph Connolly, Jr. Connolly is an American former FBI agent who was convicted of racketeering, obstruction of justice, and murder charges stemming from his relationship with James Whitey Bulger, Steve Flemmi, and the Winter Hill Gang. Connolly, who had grown up with Bulger, had been protecting them from prosecution by supplying Bulger with information about possible attempts to catch them. Connolly was indicted on December 22, 1999 on charges of alerting Bulger and Flemmi to investigations, falsifying FBI reports to cover their crimes, and accepting bribes. Connolly's relationship with Whitey was a source of inspiration for Martin Scorsese's film The Departed. The book, Black Mass, which detailed Connolly and Whitey's interactions, resulted in a 2015 film of the same name. The Rampart Scandal of the 1990s. The Rampart scandal involved widespread police corruption in the Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums, or known as CRASH, the anti-gang unit of the Los Angeles Police Department's Rampart Division in the late 1990s. More than 70 police officers either assigned to or associated with the Rampart crash unit were implicated in some form of misconduct, making it one of the most widespread cases of documented police corruption in U.S. history, responsible for a long list of offenses including unprovoked shootings, unprovoked beatings, planting of false evidence, stealing and dealing narcotics, bank robbery, perjury, and the covering up of evidence of these activities. The Rampart Corruption Task Force investigators discovered that hip-hop mogul Suge Knight, owner of Death Row Records, had hired corrupt Rampart officers for security at various times. The scandal is notable in popular culture because at least 3 Rampart police were found to be on the payroll. Testimony later revealed how, allegedly, Rampart supervisors were widely aware of and encouraged ongoing police brutality, concocting cover stories for offending officers, planning evidence to frame suspects, signing off on false reports, and even awards to congratulate officers for shootings and killings. Corrupt crash officers would get together at a bar near Dodger Stadium in Echo Park to drink and celebrate shootings. Supervisors handed out plaques to shooters containing red or black playing cards. A red card indicated a wounding and a black card indicated a killing, which was considered more prestigious. Rampart officers also wore tattoos of the crash logo, a skull with a cowboy hat encircled with poker cards depicting the dead man's hand, aces and eights. The city of Los Angeles faced more than 140 civil suits resulting from the Rampart scandal, with total estimated settlement cost around $125 million. History has shown us the dark times in law enforcement as something all departments aim to avoid, as nowadays departments and organizations strive for perfection to achieve the public trust. Even though that will probably never be accomplished completely, there's probably a good chance corruption such as from the past could never happen in today's modern police force. At least we hope so. Until next time.